Becky, last time you learned that all behavior occurs for a reason.
Even inappropriate behavior, Greg.
You learned how we develop positive behavior programs to reduce inappropriate behavior. But sometimes you may find yourself in a situation where a client is acting inappropriately and there's no behavior program.
You mean the person may be uncooperative or maybe verbally or physically aggressive?
Right. You need to know what to do.
That's important information. I'd feel a lot more at ease.
First, we'll cover some basics. Then we'll look at what happens to people in a crisis, and then I'll give you some questions to help guide you through one.
Great.
With the proper perspective on people, you won't have much problem.
Are you talking about self-fulfilling prophecy again, Greg?
That's part of it. If you expect a crisis, you'll get one. But more than that, if you don't treat others with respect and dignity, as people, you can expect them to act inappropriately.
Because they're angry and frustrated.
Right. When we send messages that say, "I'm better than you," we make it difficult to teach, supervise, or have friendships.
Yeah, by smoking cigarettes or drinking soda in front of people who are on schedules for smoking and drinking, we communicate those "I'm better than you" messages.
That behavior is frustrating to the other person, and a frustrated person is more likely to act inappropriately.
I see.
Some people think that in a crisis they need special techniques like karate or judo, but those techniques are based on power. They emphasize winning and losing, and who do you think usually wins?
Oh, the staff member.
In the short run, the staff member may win, but they lose in the long run.
Why?
Because later the client takes out his frustrations on the same person, or on another person, or on property.
What do we do if we don't try to win?
We try to help the person regain self-control. Now, it's tricky for a couple of reasons. First, we think because we're the staff member or supervisor or parent, we know best and ought to get our way.
Or because we're right and the other person's wrong.
Exactly. If you have that attitude, you're not interested in helping the other person get self-control. You're interested in getting your own way.
That's back to winning and losing, isn't it?
Sure is. Second, it's tricky to help a person regain control because both people in crisis go through stress reactions that alter the way they think and feel.
How?
Well, our bodies are programmed to respond to stress by fighting or running away. Both you and the other person involved in a crisis go through a cycle of escalation.
Escalation? What do you mean?
Well, escalation starts with an event that's meaningful to the person.
Maybe the person was hit by another client or lost something.
Or didn't receive a visit or phone call or letter. Whatever the event was, it's important to the client, and you can't make it go away by saying it's not important.
Okay, I see.
This leads to physical changes in the person's body.
Like what?
Well, blood moves towards the heart and other central organs of the body. Adrenaline, the natural chemical that allows mothers to lift autos to save their babies, it's pumped into the blood.
Wow! What are the other changes?
Glucose, another natural chemical, is pumped into the blood for energy. The mind becomes more focused, so it's harder to get through to the person.
I never realized so much was happening to a person so quickly.
You're not dealing with the same person you were dealing with before the crisis.
Because of the physical changes.
Right. And the physical changes lead to the behavior that you and I call inappropriate. Crying, stubbornness, cursing, stamping, hitting.
There's a lot going on under the surface.
Sure is. And the other person's behavior has its own meaning for you. It creates stress for you. Now you begin the cycle of escalation.
So I'm starting to lose control too?
Yes. And before you can help the other person regain control, you've got to help yourself regain control.
What do I do?
Size up the situation by asking yourself 5 easy questions. First question, is this a protection from harm situation?
You mean is someone in danger?
More than that. I mean, is someone in immediate danger of injury, either by hurting themselves or by hurting someone else? If that's the case, you need to act right away.
Like if someone is slapping herself or hitting another person.
Those situations are rare because we have behavior programs for people who are self-injurious or aggressive. But they do occur, and when they do, you need to act right away. Next question. What's the person trying to communicate?
All behavior happens for a reason.
Right. Maybe a nonverbal person grabs you to take you somewhere, not to hurt you.
I've had that happen to me. I found out the person just wanted to show me something.
Exactly. A client is trying to communicate a need or want by his behavior. It's good that you didn't interpret that attempted communication as a crisis. Next question is, what's the worst that could happen if I don't get involved? If no one's in immediate danger, why do anything?
You mean, why don't I just mind my own business?
Yeah. Instead of helping, you may escalate the situation. Once, Steve didn't go to work at exactly the right time. So 4 people swooped down and tried to carry him off to work. Steve kicked and struggled as he was being carried, and then the situation was totally out of control. Steve could fall, the staff could fall, or get kicked.
So you're saying to leave the person alone?
I'm saying there's no need to get into a win-lose situation, a power struggle where you feel you have no alternative but to win or give in.
In a power struggle, tension keeps building because nobody wants to back down.
And nothing's solved in a power struggle. Steve didn't learn anything about self-control. To help another person regain control, you need to be a calming influence. The best way to teach is through your own example.
So if I calm down, the other person is more likely to calm down as well.
Right. Now the 4th question is there more help available close by?
Why would I need help?
If you're frustrated, you'll escalate the situation. Bring in someone else with a fresh perspective. Maybe you have a history of difficulty with this person where another person doesn't.
Isn't that giving in?
You're still thinking in terms of winning and losing. When your goal is to solve the problem instead of fixing the client, there's nothing wrong with asking for help.
I see.
My last question is, what's the safest and the easiest way to handle this?
You mean, what's my best alternative?
Sure. There are things you can do to help a person regain control. Let's talk about some of them.
Okay.
Nonverbal alternatives are the least likely to escalate the other person.
Nonverbal alternatives. Like what?
Like your physical presence. Just your being there can change the behavior of someone else. Can you think of a situation where the presence of someone else changed your behavior?
Oh, sure. Driving down the highway and I see a policeman in my rearview mirror, I'll check my speedometer and put on the brakes.
Right. You see an authority figure and you change your behavior. What are some other factors that influence a person to change their behavior?
Whether the person is a man or a woman, how big the person is, how well you know the person.
Yes. And another factor is proximity.
How close you are to the person?
Right. Many people are uncomfortable if you get too close. One client, Adam, would escalate as I moved closer. Other people feel reassured if you come close to them. Another client, Richard, would calm down as I got closer. It depends on the person and how you approach them.
How I approach them?
How quickly you move.
Oh, if I move in too quickly, I could startle the person, and that would further escalate the situation.
Sure. Then there's your voice.
If I'm too loud, that could scare the other person.
Also, there's your hands. Are they clenched or opened? There's your facial expression, happy, sad, angry. And there's whether or not you look the person in the eyes.
If my hands are clenched and I look angry, I look like I'm ready to hit.
If you look the person in the eyes, you'll appear more supportive. Remember, there aren't any magical solutions. You have to know the other person and assess the situation. Now for the verbal alternatives.
Okay.
The goal of the verbal alternatives is to help the person regain control by talking things out. When speaking to the other person, start by using that person's name first.
Paul, stand up. Okay, That helps get the person's attention.
Then there's listening. Listening is another way to show you care. Listening gives the person the chance to blow off steam verbally. You may not agree with the other person, but you'll help by listening.
It sounds like a good idea.
One technique to use with listening is clarifying. Clarifying isn't giving your advice or saying what you think should be done. When you feel a need to say something, help the person by restating what you think the person's feeling. Either repeat what they said or put it in your own words.
Like saying you're worried because you haven't spoken to your mother this week, or you feel that Susie gets more than you do.
Sure. If that's not how the person feels, they'll tell you. As you're listening and helping to clarify feelings, you may find the person's reaction is way out of proportion to what they're talking about.
Like if a person who doesn't usually care about the dust starts getting angry because the furniture is so dusty?
Right. When that happens, you can say, yeah, there's a lot of dust around here, but I get the feeling that something else may be on your mind.
What if I say, is there anything else that's bothering you?
Just as long as you don't come across as saying, what you told me isn't important.
That would escalate the other person.
Yes. You can occasionally distract the other person from what's bothering them through humor or by recommending a substitute activity.
You know, changing the subject usually works with me.
Next is stating behavior consequences. In a crisis, the other person may behave inappropriately. Remind the person of the consequences of their behavior. State behavior consequences positively so the person will want to do it.
Oh yeah, we talked about that before, saying if you go to work, you'll get a soda.
Right, instead of threatening the person. Last alternative is problem solving. Through problem solving, you help the other person think about what to do to regain control of their behavior.
That's going to take good communication.
Sure it is. And you'll be using listening, clarifying, and stating behavior consequences to help the person solve their problem. Important points to remember are that if you find yourself getting into a power struggle, the situation is escalating.
I should stop and figure out why it's so important that I get my own way.
Right. Verbal confusion also leads to escalation.
What do you mean?
Well, it's confusing when more than one person is talking at the same time.
Oh, sure. That's confusing and frustrating.
We confuse when we make competing and conflicting demands on the other person.
Like I say to do one thing and another person says to do something else. Are there other ways to verbally confuse a person?
Sure. By not giving the person enough time to respond after you ask a question.
Oh, that's like jumping on the person.
Now, after a crisis, after it's all over, ask yourself, how could I have been more effective? What will I do differently next time? This will help you in the future. Well, Becky, that's it.
Thanks for the help, Greg.
You're welcome.